War is a genre that has been around since the early days of cinema, but as the landscape of the film industry evolved, different genres evolved with it. War films are interesting to look back at though. Their evolution follows a similar path to other genres. It became more self-aware and started to pick apart different tropes. Films like Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now and Oliver Stone's Platoon showed how powerful war movies can be. Then, in 1998, Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan was released. I think it's safe to say that every war movie released after Saving Private Ryan owes a debt of gratitude to that film. It remains the gold standard for war films today. But I'm not here to talk about those movies. In 2009, Kathryn Bigelow's The Hurt Locker was released to massive praise, and ended up taking home 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. But, before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about Kathryn Bigelow. Kathryn Bigelow was born on November 27, 1951 in San Carlos, California, and in the fall of 1970, she enrolled at the San Francisco Art Institute, where she obtained her degree in 72. She eventually got her master's from Columbia University and taught there and at the California Institute of the Arts. She began her film career with her student film, The Setup, in 1978. Her feature film debut was 1981's The Loveless, starring Willem Dafoe, which she co-directed with Monty Montgomery. She followed up The Loveless with Near Dark in 1987 and Blue Steel in 1990. These films already began to display Bigelow's fascination with violence and deconstructing genre tropes. In 1991, Point Break was released, which basically blew these other films out of the water in the public eye. Point Break remains one of the quintessential 90s action crime thrillers even today. She followed up Point Break with Strange Days in 95, The Weight of Water in 2000, and K-19 in 2002. None of these films managed to impress critics or audiences that much. For Bigelow's next film, she switches from the hyper-stylized realism employed in her last few films. That film was The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker story is pretty simple. It follows a US military bomb disposal unit in Iraq. After the death of the unit's staff sergeant, a new leader is brought in. He has a gift for defusing bombs, but he constantly takes risks that put everyone else in danger. A setup like this could result in a very boring film, but Bigelow and the writer Mark Bull elevate the material. The film focuses on how the soldiers' mental health is affected by the events that they experience. The characters are so well written and acted, you really do sympathize with their struggles as the film goes on. Mark Bull is a journalist who spent some time with an actual American bomb squad in Iraq. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Bull states that,
"The idea is that it's the first movie about the Iraq War that purports to show the experience of the soldiers. We wanted to show the kind of things that soldiers go through that you can't see on CNN. And I don't mean that in a censorship conspiracy way. I just mean the news doesn't actually put photographers in with units that are this elite."
Bigelow even purposely cast lesser-known actors to help add to the film's realism. Aside from the writing and performances, Bigelow's direction really stands out. Bigelow as a director has a focus on realism in her films. The Hurt Locker uses this to its advantage. The whole film is shot through this shaky cam pseudo-documentary style. On set, they used 4 Super 16mm cameras to capture the raw feeling. This system was used so that Bigelow could capture every possible angle. The film actually consistently breaks the 180-degree rule, which actually helps adding to the feel of the movie. I found myself getting lost and actually feeling like I was there, watching the characters and experiencing everything with them. The only times the film strays from this style are during its sparingly used slow-motion shots. These shots break up the realistic cinematography and work to emphasize their respective scenes. The film is very quiet, and the mix of mostly diegetic sound and cinematography creates this intense tension. This tension especially shines through in the film's many bomb defusing scenes. The last act of this film makes me sweat whenever I watch it. The ending especially gives me chills. I won't spoil it because I highly recommend this film, but wow. When The Hurt Locker was released, it was immediately praised by critics and ended up making over $50 million at the box office against its $15 million budget. At the 82nd Academy Awards, The Hurt Locker was nominated for 9 Oscars and ended up taking home Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, Best Film Editing, Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, and a Best Director award for Bigelow. All of these awards were very deserved, and Kathryn Bigelow became the first woman to ever win an Academy Award for Best Director. So, how does she follow up this incredible high in her career? Zero Dark 30 was released in 2012. The film is about intelligence analyst Maya and the hunt for Osama bin Laden post 9/11. It follows Maya through the near decade-long search. The film works as a sort of companion piece to The Hurt Locker. Unlike The Hurt Locker, though, Zero Dark 30 is less of an intimate character story, but a near 3-hour, decade-long spanning epic. Although like The Hurt Locker, Bigelow's unflinching with her depiction of violence in this film. Zero Dark 30 was once again written by Mark Bull. There's a focus exclusively on the team that's trying to find Bin Laden, and the film basically ignores the politics of it. Again, like The Hurt Locker, it's trying to humanize these nameless agents and people, and show how everything they're experiencing affects their mental health, with Maya becoming colder and colder as the film goes on. It's not pro-anything, but it's never explicitly against things like torture, which actually led to some controversy on release. I also found out that apparently right before filming began, Osama bin Laden was assassinated. Bigelow and Bull worked quick, and the ending of the film recreates the raid on bin Laden's compound. Bigelow employs the handheld realism style for this film, but again, unlike Hurt Locker, it doesn't feel like you're in the action with the characters. Zero Dark 30 uses its cinematography to make the viewer feel like a fly on the wall, and create this constant dread that just hangs over the entire film. The actors really elevate this material through their fantastic performances. The actual search for Bin Laden is one of the most intriguing things I've seen in a movie as of late. It almost reminds me of a mystery thriller, and the dread that Bigelow creates makes scenes of people searching through computers or looking at files that much more thrilling. At this point, I still preferred Hurt Locker, but the last 45 minutes of this film really sell it for me. The last act of this movie is the raid on Bin Laden's Abbottabad compound. This is the most a film has made me sweat. Obviously, the viewer knows how the scene is going to end, but the 2 hours of build-up and the re-implementation of techniques used in The Hurt Locker once again put you right back in the action. The sequence is told through lots of mediums, close-ups, body cam footage, and these sweeping wides of the compound. Once the soldiers enter the compound, the focus is exclusively on them. No cuts back to Maya, no music. The entire sequence is also very dark, with the only lighting coming from explosives and the night vision that the soldiers have. Before this sequence, Bigelow and Bull have us spend some time with the soldiers, and the raid actually has some really intriguing character beats. I'd highly recommend this film, so I won't spoil the ending, but like The Hurt Locker, I was wowed. Absolutely due in part to Jessica Chastain's amazing acting. Zero Dark 30 was praised by critics and made $132 million against its $50 million budget in the box office. At the 85th Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay, Best Sound Editing, and Best Film Editing. It won Best Sound Editing and actually tied with Skyfall for the award. Zero Dark 30 may have been a critical darling, but it was also very controversial. The film's unflinching depiction of torture angered a lot of people, and it was accused of being pro-torture. Republicans and conservatives also accused the filmmakers of having access to classified information due to the realism of the Abbottabad raid sequence and its accuracy, despite being made so shortly after the actual operation. An investigation was launched into this, but was eventually dropped. After Zero Dark 30, Detroit was released in 2017, and Bigelow is currently working on a new film for Netflix called Aurora, which doesn't have much information out on it yet. Kathryn Bigelow stands out in the landscape of modern Hollywood. It's interesting to see a female director tackle topics that are usually reserved for men. She doesn't stray away from violence, and it's actually a big uniting through line in her filmography. Bigelow's trademark realism has helped to pioneer modern action films to this day. Films like Point Break focus more on character, which helps add stakes to the action. Her films are often unflinching and uncomfortable in their depictions of violence, and employ a large number of POV shots. You can tell when a movie is made by her. Bigelow is easily one of the most influential modern filmmakers I've seen, and has definitely paved a path for women in cinema going forward. After her Oscar win, the Best Director was also awarded to Chloe Zhao in 2020 and Jane Campion in 2021. Kathryn Bigelow is going to go down in history as one of the greats, and thanks to her, the future of action in films is very bright and exciting. I'll definitely be watching her next projects as they release. I highly encourage everyone to go check out her films.
1, 2, 3, 4! Good morning, good morning.
It's great to stay up late.
Good morning to you.
When the band began to play, the stars were shining bright.
But now the milkman's on his way. It's too late to say goodnight.
So say good morning.
Good morning. Sunbeams will still smile.
Good morning to to you.
Could be grander than to be in Louisiana in the morning. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were still going.